how guys really want you to talk to them. In this video, you will discover some new frames, some new point of views on how to talk to men so that you can continue to empower yourself and speak your truth. However, at the same time, also continue to not only set boundaries, but also encourage the man to, of course, pursue you, right? So in other words, you're going to learn how to create this healthy tension between like yourself, focusing on yourself, and as well as being compassionate towards the other person. However, you also have to be compassionate to yourself, because that's what my clients learned when they attracted the right man for them, right? It wasn't just about, of course, communicating into the man's value system. It was also about being true to themselves, right? And saying, wait a minute, you've been talking for a long time. Let me interrupt you. So let's go ahead and dive right into the things, how guys really want you to talk to them. Number 5 is aligned energy. So what does that mean? So ask yourself, what do you think? What do you say? And then what do you do on a date? So for example, what can happen is you can think like, oh gosh, this guy, oh my gosh, he's like so like such a talker. Oh my God. But what you do is ask another question, or you just keep nodding, or you keep smiling or laughing. And none of that is actually aligned, because the truth is what you really want to say is what you should say is, hold on. Wow, this is like really interesting. There's so much information here that you just shared with me. It's so interesting, like your vacation and your work life, and that you just got a new pet and all of these things, right? But you don't say that. So then you're actually out of alignment. However, men actually want you to be true to them with themselves, right? They actually want you to be in alignment. They actually want you to be attuned with them, because it creates trust. And of course, when something creates trust, then not only are you going to get the second date, considering, of course, interested, invested, attracted to this man, but also you'll actually sustain the relationship without having to jump through hoops, turning yourself into a pretzel, or giving all your power away. So aligned energy in this particular case means actually saying what you really think. However, this could also be true. Let's say you're nervous, right? Or let's say, like you could say, hey, can I be honest with you? By the way, this is so sweet. If you can just be like, hey, can I just be honest with you? Because it kind of prepares the man, and it says like, hey, this is so sweet, right? This is like this. She really wants to be honest with me. She really wants to be authentic with me. She really wants to be transparent with me. And what man is going to say no to that? And you can say, I'm a little nervous. Maybe you haven't been on a date in a while, right? Or maybe you were really excited because you had a great conversation on the phone, and now you actually meet in person. Now, research actually shows that men love when women actually say, considering, of course, that they're emotionally available, right? That when the men are emotionally available and high caliber, high quality, they actually love when women share with them that they feel a little insecure, or they feel a little imbalanced, they feel a little bit off balance, because they're so excited to be on this date, right? Or also another piece is, let's say you actually just shared something sad. And instead of laughing it over because you feel the impact of the sadness in your body, you actually let the man feel the sadness as well. And you can say, wow, this is really sad what you just shared. As opposed to laughing when something is not funny and it's actually sad, and then it confuses the man and it creates mistrust. Number 4 is preface your feedback. Now, this goes back into what I was sharing before. You want to be true to yourself. So you definitely don't want to, think that the man is like made out of sugar, right? That he's falling apart, that he has zero resilience, that you walk on eggshells. No, none of that. I want you to be honest from the get-go. However, you want to do it in such a way that it continues to empower the man and to encourage the man, right? That he wants to continue to make you happy, to support you, and ultimately to meet your needs. So how do you do that? So when you preface your feedback, you want to actually do something called pre-frame, which is you want to actually say, my intention is to have, like an authentic, an honest, in a transparent conversation with you, a connection with you, right? A trusting, like connection with you. And in light of that, like I had an observation. Would it be okay if I shared that with you? Right? So again, you preface the feedback, you know why. And then of course he's going to be like, yes, of course, I'd love to hear it, because my intention is also to have an authentic, transparent, honest, trusting relationship. So you really hand him a map, right? So in other words, it is as if when you go into a new house that you haven't been before, right? You have a hallway, a foyer that you walk into. And this is good, right? Because it helps you to orient yourself. It says, okay, when I keep going straight, there's the kitchen. And it makes the nervous system feel safe. When I look to the right, there is the bathroom. It makes the nervous system feel safe because it knows what's coming next. The same is true when you communicate with a man, because the man wants to feel safe, right? His defense mechanism, you want the defense mechanism, the protection mechanism, the coping mechanism to come down. Number 3 is compliment his initiative. Now, you want to, in general, compliment men on what you want to see more of. Now, so many women don't do that. And then they wonder why the man is no longer pursuing them in the same way, or why the man is now getting discouraged. Now, of course, this happens in relationships. Let's say the man actually loads the dishwasher the wrong way, right? So instead of the partner, like let's say you live together with your partner, right? Saying like, I just really appreciate you making the impact, the effort to load the dishwasher. And then you can say, hey, I'm noticing something, we seem to have different styles to load the dishwasher. You know what I mean? You just put in the plates and the cups downstairs and everything, And I actually have a system to it, right? Would you like me to share that with you? Very different, right? So you always want to compliment him on his initiative, whatever he did. Right? Like, thank you so much for setting up the date. I really appreciate you picking a time for a phone call, right? This makes me feel fill in the blank, right? It makes me feel cherished, or it makes me feel taken care of, or it makes me feel at ease. Or you want to always communicate some sort of emotional impact that it has on you when he took initiative, right? Thank you so much for opening the car door for me. So it's not just about like being grateful in general and appreciating in general, but you want to be appreciative about his initiative. Or also, same thing, let's say he shares something on the date, on the phone call about where he took initiative. Right? Like I helped this woman across the street, or, I took this in my own hands, to really continue to speak to this. Wow, I love when you were sharing that you took this project into your own hands at work, right? It really shows me that you are a builder, not just a dreamer, so you can just really compliment his initiative. Now, this one is a really big one, which is number 2, encourage him after making, quote unquote, I should have said, a mistake. See, it's not what's outside of us, but actually what's inside of us that counts. I give you an example. How come that 2 different women can date the same men, but yet they get a totally different response from them? Why is that? Because they bring out something different out of the man. Why is that? Because they have something different inside of them. So we all know the saying, when you squeeze an orange, what comes out? Of course, orange juice. Why is that? Right? Because it's inside of you. So only what's inside of you can come out. Nobody can put something new in there and then it comes out, right? Nobody can provoke you into anger. Nobody can provoke you into resenting someone. Nobody can provoke you in scarcity mindset, right? There's no good men in my town, or I'm not going to find another guy like this, right? Nobody can provoke you to say that. So the question you want to ask yourself, who put this in the first place, right? And of course, this goes back to your childhood. Right, who put it inside of you is, of course, your parents, right? You put it inside of yourself because you made that decision that when your parent was not paying attention to you, when your parent belittled you and made you wrong because you were standing up for yourself in kindergarten, right? Or if you said like this boy, this girl bullied me, right? It's like you should just suck it up. You made that mean something, and that's what you put on the inside, right? Of course, also what you put on the inside is what you saw because your parents modeled to you, let's say, rage. I had like one client and she grew up in a very rageful environment. And because of that, she had rage on the inside, right? So she could flip at a moment's notice because the mom was quick to hit her, was quick to yell at her, was quick to discipline her. However, after she worked with me and she actually learned to not only transform that anger into compassion, empathy, and self-love, right? She was also attract the right man for her as well. So what it could look like when you encourage him after making a mistake is you actually see what's so great about the situation. You see the questions we ask ourselves in life directs our focus. Now, this comes directly from Tony Robbins. Now, what that means is, okay, so what's so great about that is the question we ask ourselves. So let's say my husband and I, we had a situation. We were actually visiting my father-in-law in Oregon, and we were planning to fly home that day. And so we were at the airport, and we're at the ticket counter. You may already see where this is going. And the assistant, looked up our flight, and he said, "You sure you're on the right, like, Alaska Airlines? Yeah, like, yes, name, yeah." Oh, and I took a deep breath because I knew what he's going to say next. "Your flight is booked for tomorrow." Now, what I could have done is like totally put my husband down, right? I could have totally made him wrong. I'm like, are you kidding me, right? Like all you needed to do is book those tickets, right? So resentment and anger could have come out of me, right? But because what I put on the inside is love, is compassion, and it's also possibility. I asked myself, okay, what's so great about this? So what's so great about this? Well, we have now the option to fly somewhere else. Maybe, let's say, maybe we, instead of flying home, what if we flew for 2 days somewhere else, visited some friends in another state because, we may as well because now we're flying, and so on. Now we ended up flying actually home that day with a different airline, different time, right? But the point is that I encouraged him, right? I said, hey, and by the way, there's a communication breakdown because I should also check something as well. So I took on some responsibility, but it was so great because we felt possibility, right? And we could decide in that moment that he wants to marry you because he feels like he can make a mistake and he's not going to get like he's not going to feel shame and he's not going to get embarrassed and he's not going to get emasculated, but instead he's going to get encouraged and be like, hey, how can we see this? How can we see this through a different lens? And lastly, like you want to have a little bit of this je ne sais quoi about you. What does je ne sais quoi mean? It's French and it means I don't know. Now, French is actually my first foreign language. My mother language is German, obviously, but je ne sais quoi, right? So there's a little bit this like mysterious flair about you. And what that means is when the man asks you out, you want to be like, let me check if I'm available. Don't say right away, yes, totally, I'm available. Do you want to do 5 p.m. or do you want to do 7 p.m.? I can also do tomorrow, 2 p.m. I can also do next week. No. Way too over available. And I see this with my women all the time. In the beginning, before they work with me, they come to me and I see all those text messages. And the man hasn't even said, let's say the man says, hey, are you available then? And the woman's like, no, I'm not available then. And then the man hasn't even texted back. And the woman's like, but I'm available then. And if that doesn't work out, I can also be available then. And how does that sound to you? No, wait a minute. Let him just feel like, okay, I'm not available then. Great. Let him coming back to you, right? The ball's in his court. He is going to be the problem solver, right? So I have a little bit of this je ne sais quoi. about you, because it's really going to challenge the man to continue to be the problem solver. And then when you actually end up in a relationship with him, he will be already unconsciously programmed to provide, to figure out the solution, to find the initiative that I was talking about in the beginning, right? So now, before I share my bonus secret, leave a comment and review of what you're most liking from this content so far. And lastly, before all of you here that stayed until the end, the bonus is be light and deep. Now, this actually reminds me of a reality TV show I watched. And this was a particular, it was called Millionaire, something with Millionaire. And it was about two guys. One was a millionaire, one was not a millionaire. Doesn't really matter, right? So anyways, the millionaire went on a date. By the way, the women don't know who's the millionaire, who's not the millionaire. And they both go on dates separately, but the women try to find out who's the millionaire, whatever. So this millionaire went on a date, and this woman, she would always go deep. She would always go deep, right? She'd always go heavy. She'd always talk about the most vulnerable experiences in her childhood. And even when he met the parents, it was always like just really heavy. It was like about her academic experience. And, and in the end, he sent her home because she was just deep. There was no lightness. There was no variety, right? And I'm not saying you're supposed to be someone that you're not, but look, I guarantee you when you hang out with your girlfriends, there's some lightness about you. There's some joy about you. If there's not, I highly recommend connecting with someone who has some lightness on the inside and ask them about what makes you being so light, or think about some time in your life when you were light. Maybe you like painting. Maybe there's something where you feel light. Look, I had one client and she's highly successful, highly accomplished. So definitely can go really deep and very accomplished, very adult-like, right? And then we found out there's actually this show on YouTube that she really loved. And, and all of a sudden this lightness showed up and it was so funny. And this guy's just video blogging and all those things. So find out what that is for you. Same is true if you're always light. If you feel I want to keep things on the light side. I want to be kind of fun and all the things, you lose the depth, and the man can feel that. And he also wants to experience the depth as well, because when he thinks about long term, he also wants to feel can I have real life conversations with her? Because of course, same show, right? There's of course also a woman who was constantly just light and just on the surface and just fluffy and just goofy, and it would just never go deep. So you want to have that combination of the two. And honestly, when you're honest with yourself, you want a man too who can go deep. And you can sit by the water, you can sit by the lake, right? You can sit on a mountaintop and you can just really talk about life. But you can also just have a ball, and you can just do something spontaneous, right? And you can just start, a whipped cream battle in the kitchen and throw whipped cream at each other, something, or icing or something like that, right? Okay. All right. So if you like me to personally help you to get the man and the relationship you want, apply for a free 15-minute clarity session with me at mymcall.com. The link is in the comments below as well. Lots of love to you, ladies, and I will talk to you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.